Did you actually clap on 3 just now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because that was like, I was like really not prepared to how much delay that was. But that's fine. Like this is why.
I told you it's going to be a ton of delay. So I think there's so much delay to the point where you can kind of just guess where I'm answering.
That's fair. But now I have the proof and I can actually account for it in post. This is how the podcast is starting, by the way. I hope you understand that.
It's the worst.
No. This is what the people came for.
What, for shitty people who don't know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Well, me. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, so this is a podcast about people that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. People with strong opinions who have no idea about anything.
That's like, at least it's a self-aware podcast in itself.
Does that make it any better?
Yes.
All
So,
right.
you know what we didn't do is we didn't talk about what we were going to talk about before starting to record.
Which is what I was trying to say.
But I think this is
This is nothing. This is just rambling.
I know.
I would hate this.
but podcasts are just rambling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. There's a lot of Joe Rogan stuff I can't get through.
Yeah, me too. Yo, did you start that Post Malone one? I was like, this is going to be cool. Yeah, this is going to be cool. And then it was like not cool.
I started it today, and then they got to the part where they're talking about wakeboarding, and I'm like, all right, this is
I didn't even get.
They're not saying anything.
That's exactly where I stopped too. Fuck.
Yeah.
All right, so Josh,
music.
I think we should
Yeah.
do a quick introduction about like who we both are, like in a subtle, quick way. Like, who are you? What do you do?
Well, we're both prog guitarists, I guess. Whatever that even means.
Yeah, that's fair. We can talk about that. That's like a good thing. Like, what does it mean to be in this sort of weird modern guitarist niche that also like rarely play extended range? Although you do
dude,
a little bit.
You're making it like a smaller group than it needs to be.
Is it? I feel like it's pretty small. Like, I feel like
There's like 3 people.
Yeah, I feel I've played a 7-string like for a total of like maybe 2 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like maybe
What is it, a neck thing that you don't like?
Nah, I just had one and it was really bad, and I stopped playing it because it was not fun. So if anybody's listening,
I currently have one that's not great.
Yeah, so if anybody's listening and wants to give me a nice 7-string, I'll take it. I'll get corrupted for the nice the nice 7-string.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we'll do anything for beer.
But who are you, Josh? Tell me about yourself. What are you doing with guitar?
I'm trying. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying my best.
Trying your best? You're doing pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to write music that I like. You know, I'm not trying to write music that is popular, obviously, because I'm playing prog. You know, and I like improvising. So I was like, I'm just going to write a music where I just get to improvise the whole time.
Yeah, I feel that. Because the more you improvise, the less you have to write.
Right, exactly. And then I get to tell people, oh, my writing process is improvising. And they're all amazed by it.
Yeah, I know.
But it's like, it's because I'm lazy.
Yeah, it's actually just a hack. We're both just hacks.
I know. That's what it feels like most of the time. Well, for me, I don't feel like you're a hack.
What do you mean? I absolutely feel like I'm a hack.
Yeah, but you actually know what you're doing.
Shut the fuck up. I don't know. I don't know anything. You know, we know. I just know more words.
Yeah, right. You have names for everything.
Yeah, I just have names for everything.
Yeah. So I just stumble. When someone asks me a question about what I'm doing, I just like stumble. I don't know how to answer it, even though it makes sense in my head. Like you have words, you have a vocabulary.
Words, but in the end, I think even if I can explain it better, like it still is perceived the same by the person asking the question. Right? Like I feel like if someone asks you like, oh, like what scale are you using here? And then in your head, you're just like, well, that's already not the right question. Right? So like you can either just give the answer like, oh, I'm playing a D major on this whole 1 minute like track or whatever.
Right.
I feel like that's not
it's funny when people ask what like the key is.
Yeah, what key is
like,
this?
You can't just like just pick up a guitar.
Yeah. I mean, it's not to say that like there's some kind of barrier to entry. I just feel like the way to think about that is not by asking someone for like an easy like, oh, it's in this key or I'm using this scale. Like that's not the answer. It's not the answer you're looking for, even though that's what you're asking for. It's a classic case of the audience doesn't know what it wants.
Okay, so I think we think about this differently. Because I tend to think in scales and modes and stuff.
For sure, but not at the moment that you're playing, right? Like, even though you're thinking that you're playing in a scale or on a mode or a chord, you're still trying to play a melody that you're like somewhat, semi-hearing, right?
Oh, right, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So like in that sense, you're not necessarily playing a scale. You're like playing a sound. Like you're just, and then the scale is just, I mean, for me, it's more of a visual framework. Like I just see like the box or the grid or whatever, and then, use that as like a reference point, like a safety.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm usually trying to think of the intervals that I'm playing against the chords, even though in a visual way, I might be thinking of a scale that doesn't necessarily relate to the chord that I'm playing over, because the scale itself, and the name would be in just a way of categorizing it. The scale I'm using is just so I know where the notes are visually on the fretboard, but then when I'm playing, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to try to hit the third of the chord that's happening.
Right.
Even though yeah.
Okay, here's a question that I'm sure you also get all the time. People are always asking like, when I play a guitar solo or when I improv, it just sounds like I'm playing a scale. It doesn't sound like I'm playing like melodies and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm always like, well, don't just play the scale. Like, know how intervals sound, and then like form melodies in your head. Like we do it so quickly in our heads that we can just think of it and play it immediately. But, try to think of something ahead of time. Like, don't just play shapes.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it when I'm playing fast.
Of course.
Of course. I think most people are. But like, if you're trying to play melodically.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's actually like, I find that this thing where you just are stuck playing things and it just sounds like you're playing the scale, even if it's like out of order, I think it comes from like an insecurity of making a mistake. Because right, like when I'm telling people like how to stop doing that, I'm just like, oh well, you're just gonna have to take some time and like explore the shape that you're playing in, or the scale, or like the neck, even if it's not attached to a particular scale, and just like let yourself,
you're gonna need to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, you just got to make some mistakes. And like, but when you're making the mistakes, and especially when you're making, when you're playing things that you enjoy, you have to be able to be like, okay, like this was cool, what is it? And then you can kind of like, however, whether you're using like traditional theory or more of like a knot theory approach, you should be able to, I mean, you should not be able to, but you should categorize it in a way that you can recall it in different context.
I like to think about how a one note from the scale sounds directly after another note. So like what I used to kind of practice was I'd go back and forth between a certain interval and like the one, and then I go back and forth between a certain interval and the two, and kind of hear what they sound like after each other to try to form what I liked, I guess.
That's pretty cool. I kind of did really, really free and annoying improvisations over like drones.
Yeah, okay.
Like I'd do like one note and then I would try to play different scales over it. You know, or like parallel scales, you know, like if I'm playing a G, like I could play like different scales that has the root as G.
Mm-hmm. You see, so that's probably a better way of doing it.
Well, I mean, there's no
about.
better way. I was just trying to like internalize the sounds of different scales myself, separated from like whatever I would be playing over. And that's like a huge thing when people want to figure out how to start playing spicy things, you know, whether it's like really spicy or like just a little mild.
Right.
Is being able to like hear what other scales would sound in this context or like various contexts.
Right. So you would do that over like you'd pick a chord and then
yeah, I mean, you know, like
try different scales on top of it.
It doesn't sound really good, but you can spend like half an hour playing minor over major chords and see how it makes you feel. It doesn't sound really good, but it's definitely humbling.
There's some tensions.
Right, like how good can you make a minor scale sound over a major chord? And you spend like an hour on doing that, like the waste your time.
Yeah. Did you ever mess around with going out, so like trying to see how different scales sound resolving back to the scale it's supposed to be?
No, I didn't do that, although that's something I should be doing. Damn. Wait, sorry, I gotta go practice. I'm just kidding. I kind of did that in the context of like 5 chords resolving to 1, like playing different tonalities of what you'd play over a 5 chord, whether it's like, you know, like altered or whole tone or diminished or like mixolydian or like shit like that. Mm-hmm. And then going to 1, whether it's minor 1 or major 1. And that just came out of necessity because like every time I had a 2-5-1, I was like, I can't play this and make it sound good. So I just had to have like devices under my fingers. But what you're talking about... See,
I haven't practiced that kind of thing that much because I'm never really playing over 2-5-1s.
But bro, like since I graduated, I haven't played a 2-5-1. It's actually not true. Like there have been a few sparse 2-5s. But if I don't put myself in that context, I'm not. It's not something that's very needed of me, unless like I'm playing other people's music, or like R&B
in your own music. How often are you playing?
Never. I actually hate. Out. I thought you were saying 2-5s. I don't have I have no 2-5s in my music, just because it's not a color I like. But in terms of playing out, I try to do it. I do it fairly often. Whenever it's like a palatable thing that could happen here. Like on Cold Turkey, there's like the solo section. It's like just the bass note, just E the whole time. And then I was like, okay, like I'm going to play all the different scales of E that I can. And I had a bunch of different, different solo ideas. I did a lesson a while ago and I have like alternate solos at the end of that video where I was doing like different things. But what I ended up doing on the album take, I did like, I just did minor. I went to Dorian, then I went to melodic minor. And then I just went out, like fully out. Like I went like a tritone away and then back out and then back out. And then I just like resolved that for the end of the solo.
So when you're switching between like the different modes and then going minor third or whatever away, are you like trying to resolve things or are you just playing, is it just random order?
It's not really random. I'm just trying to make the line happen. I guess I'm trying to resolve things, but I'm not necessarily thinking about it that way. I'm just trying to make a line that is so strong in itself that it doesn't matter where I go, the ear will like follow it. right? Like if you're playing things out of order, like that's not as strong. Like if you're like repetition, repeating a device, you know, whether it's like 4 notes, and then you use those 4 notes and you just move those in different interval distance or like through different scales, then the ear will recognize those 4 notes and latch onto that pattern through the different modes, right? And you're building tension, but because you've established the pattern or the motif or whatever, it's kind of it's just more palatable to the ear because there's something to latch onto. That's why playing out with fourths is so cool, because the 4th interval is so strong, right? Or if you play like a minor 7 arpeggio and then you move that in tritones and you keep going up, there's that structure of the minor 7 arpeggio is constant.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, and that's like, I mean, I'm just like kind of using that device, but there's like so many other players that do that so much better. Like Griggs is crazy, period, but he's crazy doing all that shit all the time over anything, everywhere, and making it work. He's an interesting fella, that guy, when it comes to the way he thinks of guitar. It's crazy.
I know. I love everything that he posts.
I know. But what do you like think of when you're soloing? Because you do a lot of different tonalities when you solo. Like you go through, like you do a lot of modal interchange and whatnot. I don't know if you think about it like that, but you definitely do it.
I definitely do think about it like that. I think of, when I'm thinking about modes, I have certain modes that I think they build a lot of tension, and some that are like resolving modes, I guess. Because I like to relate everything to the key of the song. I'm not going chord by chord.
Sure.
So like if I'm in A minor, right, I'll play Phrygian if I want. Like I think I like Phrygian as like the last chord before going back to the 1 or something.
But when you say Phrygian,
using that mode,
you mean A Phrygian?
Yes.
Okay.
So like the A minor scale with a flat 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll build a chord progression that I think has some like tension and release thing based on what modes I feel do that. And then I'll just follow the chords in my solo or improv or whatever.
But how like how does it happen? Like how does the process go about in your mind? Like how do you pick the chords? Like you say you use Phrygian as like the last thing, like to resolve back to A minor, but do you mean that you're going to use a chord from A Phrygian to go back to A minor?
Right. And it's usually a chord where the root note is that flat 2.
Right. So you're doing that kind of flat 2 major 7 sharp 11 thing, going back to 1.
Or I'll also go to like a Locrian thing, because I feel like sometimes that could resolve to the 1. Like I'll usually pick the mode that I feel has the most tension and put it at the end of the chord progression.
Right. That's interesting.
This is just how I've been thinking about it, because I don't really know. I never went to music school or anything, right? I grew up as a rock blues guy, you know, where
I used to
switching between modes in the middle of a solo is like, what?
It's like, what?
Yeah.
That's cool, because I do a lot of modal interchange too, but I don't think about it like that at all.
Okay. So how do you think about it?
Like in analysis, that's how I would like tell you that what happened. I'm just like, oh, well, I took this chord from this mode. But in practice, I find I have like a few, like, I mean, a good amount of those chord changes that I just like the sound of. Like that specific one that we're talking about, the flat 2 major 7 sharp 11 going back to 1, like that's really cool.
Yep.
But also, I find a lot of them are so close to other chords in the scale that I just kind of view them as occurrences in voice leading. Like I'll just kind of voice lead the different notes that I'm playing into those chords. Like if we're talking about doing, okay, so you have a major 7 chord, and then you do a minor chord, a semitone up.
Okay.
You know that sound that I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Here, I'll just actually, you know what? This is why we did this. This is why my XFX is being tracked right now. I'll just play it real quick.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of doing like a flat 6 thing, but you could also do, which is that Stevie Wonder's thing.
Right. I feel those work so well just because the high note, there's that one prominent high note that stays the same.
Yeah,
which is what I use a lot.
Yeah, but
when picking
it's
chords
actually,
that go outside of
absolutely
the key.
But that's exactly why it works so well, is because the 5th and the 3rd, actually that's not true. The 7th and the 3rd don't move, right? So you're just moving everything else around it. So there's such a strong foundation for the ear to latch onto that this change that has nothing to do with anything, that it works, right? So I see a lot of, I think this particular one is actually, it's not necessarily modal interchange, but I see a lot of modal interchange chords that way, where you just kind of move the root and then the chord, and then the rest doesn't move. And then it's kind of like slightly going in a different key for a second.
I mean, honestly, I think you can make any chord change work, but those are the easiest.
Yeah, I agree. And also, yeah, it's also the good point to make is that you can make anything work if you have the balls to play over it.
You just have to be really confident in your melody.
Yeah, I think when I was still doing like jazz theories things in school, I think like one of the last points of teacher was like, oh well, any chord can go to any chord. Right? Like it's fine. But then like in analysis, you have to find like why it makes sense, but it all makes sense in some way.
Right. See, that's farther than I would go. I would just not think about it.
Oh, and then I never really think about it. Like I think if I'm trying to explain to someone how I'm understanding the movement, I'll explain it that way, just so I can, it's like telling someone, how are you feeling this groove, right? Like if you're saying like, oh, like it's fucking 37, like what does that mean? Like where do I put the snare, right? Like, but if you tell someone that you're feeling, I don't know what 37 would be. Actually, no. So if you're telling someone that it's 2 bars of 4/4 and then 3/16 notes, then that's a lot more information than telling someone it's 37. Although that's not 37, it'd be like 5/16 notes. Anyways, I'm not bad at math, but you get my point, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, so okay, since we're on this, the rhythmic stuff, how are you feeling complex? Like when you have a rhythm with a lot of hits in it, like the one that you sent me, how are you feeling that?
In 4/4.
Are you like counting it, or are you just feeling everything against a quarter note?
Yeah, against the quarter note.
Okay, that's the same way. I feel like that's how you get odd time to groove, is to feel it against the quarter note.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just how I learned to like do it. Like I just got good at like feeling all the different possible like time cells of either 16ths or triplets, to a point that like, if I see the MIDI, it kind of feels the same as if I was kind of reading it off a piece of paper, even though like I'm way worse at reading than I should be. But and also I feel like learning to feel it when you're learning it by heart is way easier and way more intuitive than learning the numbers that you'd be counting by heart.
Right. Well, most of the time, if it's a really complex rhythm that I come up with, half the time I'm not counting it.
Right, because you're just trying to get the sound happening. You're trying to feel it. Trying to get it.
Right.
You're trying to get the sound under your fingers. You're trying not to feel too square. Because if you're busy counting, like, how are you gonna lay back?
No, you can't. And then like, I'm so used to practicing to a metronome and quarter notes that I can play anything that I would normally play. So like, if there's a really complex time signature, I'm fine with it if there's a really prominent quarter note.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where it starts getting tricky is when you're doing the stuff without a click. And then you kind of have to just be so comfortable with it that you can feel the quarter note even without it being there.
I don't know. I've played with some drummers that really don't make it easy for you. And like sometimes sometimes it's true. I have nothing to say actually. Nah, like sometimes you just got to hold on for dear life. I don't know, like the drum solo vibe when you're trying to play the rhythm. Like sometimes, like it doesn't matter if you're wrong. You just have to keep playing. You know what I'm saying? At least that's the confidence you need to approach it. Because if you start doubting yourself, you're definitely wrong.
Right. Just look at the bass player.
Yeah.
See what he was doing.
Yeah. But then you're assuming the bass player knows what he's doing. But you internalize all your rhythms by counting them, no? Like all your like 3 4 4 5 6 6 4 4 2 2, like those patterns that you like type out, like you think of it like that, whereas like think more about like where the snares would be, like where's the downbeat, and I think more of bars of like 4s and 3s and 2s and group it like that. Like your pop song in 20 video is just, well, I mean, it's not just anything, it's sick, but I mean, to me, it's 2 bars or 4, it's bars 4 and a bar 6, or like, you know, 4 4 4 4 and then 2 extra beats, like Africa by Toto. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just that type of thing. That's why the snare like stays in the same place, because it's like always on 2 and 4.
What's funny about that is when I was writing it, that's not how I was feeling it. It wasn't until after I recorded it that's how I was feeling it.
Really?
At first I was feeling it as 4 bars of 5. And that's how I felt it the whole time until I started adding all the other stuff.
But
and
like
then
you that changed when you started adding the drums, right? Or all the other stuff like before the drums or like after the drums?
So I programmed the drums first, and I was still not feeling it as 4 4 and that like a 6 at the end. I was just feeling it as groups of 5 with a backbeat in 4.
But that's so much harder. Why would you do that?
I don't know, but that's how I was feeling it at first. And then it wasn't until after I filmed my self-recording the solo that
you stopped.
I started feeling it the other way.
Damn. That's interesting.
I don't know. That's happened to me before too, where like I'll start feeling it in an easier way after I've already made it difficult for myself.
I don't know. I feel like I don't do that, because when I'm programming it and I'm setting in the DAW like where the bars are, like what the bars are as well, like I'm deciding how to feel it. But like that. Mm-hmm. Like visually for me, I want the bars to represent the way I feel the music. And because like I hate seeing like a drum beat that makes no sense to the way it's laid out in the DAW. I mean, sometimes that's unavoidable, right? Like if you do a quick metric modulation in like dot eighth notes, you know, the snare is gonna look whack, but that's fine. But in relation to like the rest of the song, like I want my snares to look like where they're supposed to, relating to the grid. You know, if it's all 2 and 4 or 3, like I want to see that on my DAW. Because then that's
interesting.
Just because then it's like I don't have to think about as much stuff. Like it's quicker, and in terms of like drum editing, that's very important. Like all the drum editing stuff I've done, I can do really quick if the pre-production and like the way I set up my DAW is done properly. Just because then I don't have to listen back. I just kind of know what it's supposed to be, and then I could check like at the end and then make sure that it was correct. Drum editing sucks though.
That's
You'll never have to do it though. You play
Yeah.
with Matt. Or actually, if you ever did it, you would stop playing with Matt because he wouldn't want to play with you anymore. It's like, oh, you edited my drums. Like, goodbye.
Oh yeah, no, that's not happening. I don't touch his drums. No way.
No, why would you ever? It's
No, there's no reason to.
There's no reason to. It's actually you actually make it worse by touching his drums.
Right, exactly. No, you know when you hear some records where the drums just sound so edited that it doesn't even, like, sometimes I can't even tell if it's a person playing it or if it's a
But you know
program.
when that happens, it's because the performance was way worse. Right? Like I don't want to talk too much shit, but
No, don't start saying
no.
names.
I've just edited some really bad drummers. Like,
Oh my gosh.
and sometimes, man, you're just like, well, this was 2 hours of my life that I could have not done and programmed drums instead. But here I am. Yeah. The drum landscape in this prog thing that we're part of is very interesting because, like, programming drums sounds so good and recording drums is so sick only if the recording is amazing and the drummer is amazing. And if, like, any of that is, like, not up to par, it's not worth doing at all, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a huge feel thing.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's definitely better.
But if you're gonna edit the hell out of it anyways, then yeah.
Yeah, like I'm okay with some editing. Like you gotta do some depending on the drummer. Like, that's fine. Especially if, like, you're on a schedule, like, it's all good. It is what it is. But if the tone captured isn't as good as because I don't want to, like, sample replace everything because of the recording. Like, if I'm recording a drummer, like, I want to hear the drummer. I don't want to hear samples on top of the drummer. So
Right, yeah.
so, like, the drummer needs to play well and the engineer needs to do his job. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one sec. I gotta
The human feel thing, it makes a huge difference for me on the really quick, like, on the really odd time stuff that's, like, weird. I think having a person actually play it makes it make more sense. Because you can just have a program drums play literally anything, but when you have a person play it, it has to physically be playable, so
True.
it just sounds better.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think anybody's programming drums that no one can play and, like, getting away with it. Like,
a good point.
that stuff's pretty obvious. And I've actually had the opposite thing. Like, I've every time Alex Ringer does a session for, like, an album, and I listen to the album without knowing it's him, I'm just like, man, like, these programmed drums sound really good. And then I see the credits and he's played on it. I'm just like, of course, I got fooled again. This has happened like 3 or 4 times that, like, he's done a session and I'm just like, man, these programmed drums, like, are sick. Because he's, like, crazy.
Yeah. So, tone.
Yo, what do you like to do
No.
for tone?
I like it to sound good.
And
What-
that's it. And that's
Do you
it,
have, like,
folks.
guitar players in mind? Do you, like, are you trying to emulate someone's tone, or are you trying to come up with your own thing, I guess? I mean, everyone's trying to come up with their own thing, but is there, like,
Yeah,
a tone that
there's
you're
a
going
few.
for?
There's a few. I feel like, yeah, I think this is a good idea. We should do like a few like favorite tones. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then like talk about, like, the philosophies behind, like, how we do it. Right? Because, like, I definitely have, like, a few guys in mind when it comes to tone, but then I do a completely different thing that they do. Like,
Okay.
because I'm all about, like, the spanky thing, like, split coil thing.
Right.
Although, like, I'm trying
Yeah.
to do that a bit less because it's a bit played out. And if I play, like, if I do, like, a whole song in split coil, like, what the fuck am I doing, you know? But it loses
But
its
strong split coil sounds are hard for me. Like, it has to work really
no,
well.
of course. And I
in
have
the
I
song.
have a fairly mellow one, but I think the impact of a good spanky split coil tone is lost if you're using it all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I'm actually I'm lucky because my Sir has 2 split coils. I got the position 2 and the position 4. And the position 2 I basically never use it because it's so intense. So whenever I use it, it's like, oh fuck, like what's happening? It's like the dirtiest position ever. It's disgusting. Like I've done it sometimes. I've done it on a few guest solos, and it's just like over the top, disgusting, spanky like thing. But yeah, so the in terms of like players, so I really like Tom Quayle, obviously, obviously.
Yeah.
But I like.
I don't think you had to mention that.
Yeah, I know. But I like, in terms of tone, I really liked his tone before he got the Ibanez deal. So when I know. I think although his new Ibanez I think sounds really, really good, but I think he like changed something, or maybe it's the pickups. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But when he was playing Sir and Fibonacci, like he had this really open, spanky thing, and I really, really like that. So I kind of that's in my head a little bit. And then there's like the Holdsworth bridge pickup thing. So there's like a balance between like being able to split coil and then having like a mellow bridge sound that you can actually use without it sucking.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like I really like the Eric Johnson Strat tone, although like
oh dude, that's like,
I know, of course.
That's the pinnacle.
I know, but I never get close to that. And
well, have you heard it recently? I feel like it's gotten darker over the years.
It's not the same. It's honestly like the Eric Johnson Strat tone for me is a very specific thing. It's like that those live videos where he's like wearing like the weird like the conductor or the marching band. Yeah. He's wearing like a marching band shirt. Like, so that video is where the tone is like, every tone in that video is crazy. The clean tones, like he's got his delays set and stuff. Oh my God, how does he do that? You know, before fractal like type of
incredible
setup.
Well, he was going into a fuzz face, right?
Yeah, but like he's got like parallel effects going or some shit. You know, because you could.
I know his clean tone is 2 Fender Twins.
But bro, like the delays keep going in the clean tone when he switches to the dirty tone.
Oh,
like it bleeds over and stuff. Like he's got it dialed, you know? But like in terms of what I'm doing, like I don't even know what I'm doing. Like it's just like much lower gain than all of these guys. But when I go to the bridge pickup, it has to be enough gain to do the like bridge pickup gent thing. Which isn't like anything specific, because I definitely don't sound like that anyways, but it just it has to feel like that to me. Has that bouncy, tight, low end type of
So when you're thinking
pickup.
of tone, you have to be able to go between rhythm and lead on the same patch?
Yes. Well, I mean, not necessarily, because like if we're talking about fractal specific things, like I have, what is it called? A scene where I turn on the drive and then it gets tighter, right? So that's what I would use for that kind of aggressive bridge pickup metal tone. And then when I don't have the bridge pickup, it's more open. But I still have to feel like I can like palm mute and riff a little bit. And I think I've gotten farther and farther away from that aggressive metal tone over time. But I'm still like chasing that feel a little bit. Maybe it's more of an EQ curve thing at this point than a specific amount of gain, because I definitely don't play through any of that stuff and have it sound like it's supposed to me. Like I can't play like through like rectifiers or PVs or like those way higher gain type of things. Like it doesn't really work for me. It feels weird. But like the lower gain type of amp that I gravitate toward has to have that tight feel in the low end, or at least like I dial it for it to sound like that. It can't be loose. Yeah. Loose is bad. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. Like it's it feels wrong. Like I feel like I'm just like, you know, you ever pick and it feels like you just like dragged your pick through like melted butter. Like that's not what I want.
Okay. I'm trying to imagine this and I don't know.
Yeah. What about you though?
Yeah. Okay. So I think in the past like 6 months, my tone and just playing has changed a ton. So like,
what were you doing before?
for the longest time, right? So for the longest time, I was strictly in going into a Fender amp. This is gonna sound like every stupid Instagram guitar player that exists, but go. I was going for the John Mayer.
Oh yeah,
Strat tone.
Yo, he has a great tone.
Dude, I still love
great
it, but
tone.
I know, and nobody that tries to play like him ever gets it right. Anyways, so I was going into an Axe FX through my Fender for the longest time. Not Axe FX, into a Universal Audio aux.
Right.
For the longest time, which that thing sounds great, but you can only get the sounds from the amp that you have.
Right, of course.
And since I switched to Axe FX in the past 6 months, my tone and playing, I think, has changed a lot.
It's only been 6 months?
So,
I thought you've been on the Fractal train for longer. Damn. Nice. Well, welcome to the year 2012. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I know. It took me a while. I was a very like, it has to be analog, the tubes.
Fool.
But then now I listen back to everything that I recorded on just analog stuff, and I'm like, why? But, so I was trying to do the John Mayer thing for a long time, tone-wise. And then now that I have the Axe FX, I'm more into like low gain, but sustain.
So like gain staging for compression? Or are you just like...
Maybe.
Like how are you getting that sustain?
Yeah, so it's I usually don't use any overdrive pedals in my Axe FX. So I'm going a compressor into like something like the 5153, which is supposed to be a high gain amp, right?
Yeah. It's
so
definitely a high gain amp. Supposed to be.
Sorry, I don't know that much about amps.
Yeah, no.
But with the drive turned quite a bit down, probably to like 2 or 3, and then just into reverb and stuff, and then I'll add more compression in the DAW.
Of course.
And then just playing stuff that has more like flow to it, more fluidity to it. Not like, because I used to play, I think, more like a blues player kind of.
Yeah, I mean, if you like that Fender amp feel, like that's what I guessed. Because like I could never play through a Fender amp unless it's like a Princeton, but even then it's like not doesn't really do it for me. You said you were like doing the twin thing, eh?
Yeah, so I had a twin. I mean, I still have a twin, but I was using the twin for a long time, and then I recently switched to the Vibrolux, which is great. But now both of those amps have been just sitting here, and I haven't even turned them on. I think this whole quarantine, I've just been going into the Axe FX. But using the Axe FX has changed my playing, just because of the giant selection of amps.
Yeah, I feel you.
But so you were saying that your rhythm, like your tones, have to be able to play both rhythm and lead. I'm definitely not like that.
Yeah, well, it just has to feel right in those departments. Because I feel like even though like I don't play a metal tone, like my picking hand is like a metal picking hand, just because I grew up like playing like metalcore and stuff, like in my in like the a large amount of a large period of time where I was like getting better at guitar and like figuring out my thing. I was like playing a lot of metal through like much higher gain stuff. So like my picking and the way I palm mute is the metal way. So I need to get that response through the amps. And also like playing leads and rhythm is kind of like the same, has to feel like the same for me, unless I'm like just comping chords for jazz, right? Like it's that's kind of the thing that like doesn't really translate to those two things.
Right.
But I mean, I'm not doing much of that anyways. But yeah, like that kind of like percussive tight bass palm mute thing needs to feel right, not only through the tone but through any pickup position of my guitar. So that's why the tone needs to work, right? And maybe I'll go for like a bit of a less tight low end for like leads, just because I don't need it. But I find also the tight low end comes from the way I palm mute and the way I pick. Right. So it's all, you know, the sound is in the hands and the guitar and the pickup. Like it's all a feedback loop. Like, you know, like you sent me your tone.
Well, I want to talk about that for a sec.
For what?
Because
which part?
How it's all important.
Yeah.
The way that you pick, the way that you hit the strings. Because I also get questions of people being like, I'm using the same thing and it doesn't sound the same at all.
Well, exactly. Like you sent me your tone and I was like, this isn't quite right for me. And I adjusted it and it was cool. And then I sent you my tone and you were like, nah, I don't like it.
There's like, it's just with I don't know if it's with my speakers or my guitar.
Oh yeah. Like it's,
but like,
yeah, like we play differently and we also have different guitars and different speakers, different rooms, right? So it's like the whole feedback loop changes. I think, you know, like I think like sharing patches is like, it's only a window into how someone went about making a patch, but you have to like adjust it for your room. Like it makes no sense to just pass around patches. Yeah,
I mean it's cool because you would set up a patch in a way that I would never.
Right. So that's what I mean. Like the approach I took is what you need to take away from my patch, but not the patch itself, because it might not work for your setup.
Right. Yeah. So don't buy gear just because
don't
other
buy
people
gear.
Play it.
Just get good, son.
Yeah, just get good.
Just get good.
Try to sound good through anything.
And you know what? I think that's a good place to leave it off. Just get good, and and then we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was interesting.
We might do it again. We might not do it again, and that's up for you to find out. You can follow me on the gram at Joseph_is_rad, 2 underscores. And then you can also follow Josh on Instagram at JoshDella, no underscores. And
never. I think it's so funny that you have underscores in your name.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I think it's funny too. I think it's way funnier.
It reminds me of like an Xbox like gamer tag or something. Like you need the 2 X's on the end.
Yeah, I should have done XX Joseph is rad XX. You know, like small X, capital X.
Yeah, exactly. You need like your clan tag in your Instagram.
Oh
handle.
my god, bro. Yo, I wish. We might be back. Goodbye.